Good morning, everybody. At Cantina Walhalla for the final part today of the masterclass on design for the Just City. Just a very brief introduction because as it was all week, it's a tight schedule. A year ago, we invited Tony Griffin to be our 7th guest urban critic at AIR. And this we thought was very important because Rotterdam's doing well, the city is moving forward, it's growing, it's investing, and we feel that everybody in the city should be a part of that. And this is a very important notion behind the City Makers program. Everybody should be able to contribute to the success of the city and be a part of that. So a sense of belonging is pivotal for the future of Rotterdam. Having said that, it's quite a challenge to find out ways to really connect the design and development of the city spatially to that notion, which is really about social justice. So we looked around the globe to find someone who was researching this issue, and we found Tony at Harvard and her studio, her lab on design for the Just City. So it was great having her here in November and setting this notion on the agenda in Rotterdam. But together with our partners from Field Academy and also from AMI, the Expertise Center for Social Innovation, and many others, we thought it would be wise to invite her back to really exercise and to look through the lens of the Just City Index on how Rotterdam might move forward as a Just City. So this was actually something that we thought was valuable to do, and I think it's this spring we invited Tony to come back. So this is short a brief history of our interest and our feelings about the urgency of the Just City for Rotterdam as a city. My name is Bas van der Pol. I work for AIR, which is the Rotterdam Architecture Institute, and we are working together on this field, let's say in Rotterdam, with our partner Field Academy, who are hosts of the masterclass this week, and with Amy Opzuid. I'm not sure how to translate that, but it's the Rotterdam High School Expertise Center for Social Innovation, I might say, in my own words. And just to finish up, the week was part of the Rotterdam Architecture Month, and we organized it together with Rotterdam Festivals, and which is really about celebrating the city, but as well looking at the new challenges of the city and really combining these two things. So just to give you some context. What we're going to do, we have 2 hours to really listen to the students who are part of the masterclass and who are guided by the people of Field Academy and Tony last week and people from the field in Rotterdam. And they worked tirelessly until late in the evening, even till a few minutes ago, to finish their studies into 4 Rotterdam areas and look through the lens of Just City and help us find out what we might do or what we might see or what new perspectives we might discover that are related to these urgencies I was just talking about. So we're going to listen to them in 4 presentations. Then first, we agreed that the tutors for the masterclass can respond. And then afterwards, if everybody's finished, then we'll ask the audience to join in for a Q&A. So this is what we agreed on. Just to give you a feel for the rest of the day, we have lunch together. You're all free to join for lunch. Then during the lunch, there will be a talk show by Amy reflecting on one of these areas, namely Fine Art City. And then afterwards, we have a 2-hour wrap-up program reflecting on what we've learned this week and also learning from others that are more or less searching for how to create this notion of inclusion and of belonging and operating it through design. So this is in short the program. So let's just start. We have 4 areas we looked at. The first one is Fine Art City, one of the biggest urban area developments in Rotterdam happening right now. It's a very tense race, I might say, that because there has to be a political decision about it. But it's one of our major opportunities And then we said we should connect that to this notion of a just city. If any place should be connected to it, it should be Feyenoord City. So this is the first thing. The second thing is Koolzuid, which is in the city center. It's an area more or less 1,500 inhabitants, quite diverse right now. And there are going to be built at least 3 big towers there. So it represents what's going on in the inner city, densifying an existing city, and the notion that everybody should be a part of that, and it shouldn't be something that comes over you as something you're not a part of. Then thirdly, Hart van Zuid, heart of the South, we might say, which is our formerly the Southplein, a shopping area and mobility hub, which really should be the heart in every sense of the south side of Rotterdam. This is actually the aim. There's an extensive social program, and the students looked at that through the lens of the Just City. And to finish up, we have Krooswijk, Schuttersveld, which is the central area within the area of the neighborhood of Krooswijk. The last decade, I have to say, there was an extensive program of restructuring the area. There's new parts, there's the old Krooswijk, there's television programs about that. How are these 2 parts really coming together? So this was a very important area for us to look at and for the students to get their teeth in, I have to say. So 4 areas, 4 very representative areas for Rotterdam right now, and 4 areas you might learn from to look to the future. So thanks very much for now. Well, this is the way we're going to do it. So first group is Feyenoord City. They'll be presenting for 20 minutes. I'll ask you to stand a bit in front of the screen. That's just because of the cameras. If we go in front of the windows, we're not visible anymore. So, and the second thing is, please talk into the microphone so that we might record and learn later with a broader group of people as well. So, thank you. Who might I ask to step forward and introduce what we've learned in Feyenoord City? Yeah? Okay, applaud. I think we should applaud every group.
Hi everyone, I'm Zach Weimer. I'm a research assistant with Tony from the Just City Lab in Harvard. So as was already mentioned, our first group will be talking about Feyenoord City and the stadium project. So we've really interrogated the master plan by OMA, and we have some thoughts about how the adjacent communities can be incorporated more into the processes that are taking part in the city right now. So,
do we have the clicker? All right. As Zach already mentioned, we're the group working on the case study of Feyenoord City, and okay, this is how it works. After we got introduced to the concept of the Just City, the first exercise that every group did was actually sketching and mapping where we're from. So each of us mapped like our neighborhood and wrote down some of the values that are present and that were missing in the area that we grew up in. So I'm Anna, and I grew up in Germany in a really rural area. Then we have Fenne from the Netherlands, from Delft, and Fergie from Greece, so really diverse. And some of the values that came up multiple times. Oh, and I forgot Ferry, sorry, our other group member who's not here today. He's from Feyenoord, actually. So yeah, then we looked up some of the values that repeated, so that all came up for all of us. And diversity was a value that we were all missing in our neighborhoods that we grew up in. Safety was one that was present. Creative innovation was missing in the areas we grew up in, and acceptance was missing. Sorry. And why did we do this exercise? These values and how we grew up, of course, influences how we perceive the built environment and what we perceive as a just city. So we were trying to keep those in mind throughout our work this past week. Okay, just a little bit about the context of the project that we worked on. So the neighborhood of Feyenoord in the south of Rotterdam, a very diverse neighborhood, lots of different nationalities, religions, and then over half of the population belongs to low-income groups, so they lack access to work opportunities, jobs, schooling, and so forth. Then we looked at the master plan of OMA and what the Fine Art City is actually about. And as we already heard, it's a private public development initiated by the Fine Art City Football Club that wants to develop a new stadium. And along with the stadium, physical-wise, they will build a lot of housing, a new strip that will include restaurants, shops. I think that's physical-wise. And then, of course, they also want to include socioeconomic programs. So they want to build a new primary school that is specialized in sports, as this whole development is all about sports. And then they also want to boost innovation, entrepreneurship, and incorporate those all around the theme of sports. And the gemeente Rotterdam is controlling and supervising the whole project. So what did we do next? We actually went to the site, the current area around the stadium, and just some images of our site observation. The first thing that we noticed, we actually had to cycle across the train track over a bridge, and that was really, this disconnects the area of the stadium to the adjacent neighborhood, and then also the waterfront that disconnects it as well. And the waterfront, we visited that one. Then on the other side, so the Fine Art neighborhood, we have community gardens that we saw, and also already some outdoor sports opportunities incorporated in the public space. And then we went back and we looked at what do we think is unjust and just about the current situation. So the first thing that came up that we think is unjust is the physical barrier of the train tracks, disconnecting the two areas, mentally and non-physically. Another thing that's unjust in our opinion, there's, for example, a train station that is only used during football games or big events in the stadium and not used throughout the daily use. So why not use it all the time? Now I can't think of another one, sorry. Exactly. So along the waterfront, or this area over here, the functionalities are really separated. So you first have the tram, then you have cars and shops, and then you have housing blocks that are really ugly. And then you have the waterfront, so there's no vitality. So there's not a lot of interaction, there's nothing going on the street, so the separation, in our opinion, is really unjust. But some things that are just, in our opinion, the waterfront is accessible, even for people on wheelchairs. They can enjoy the view. And the community garden that we spotted close to the mosque on the other side, for example. And then we looked at the master plan of OMA. And the first thing that we saw that is unjust, in our opinion, is the harsh border of the master plan. If they want to incorporate social programs for the neighborhood around it, why did they draw the border just around the physical components of the master plan? Is this all of Fine Art City? Is this not part of Fine Art? And on the other side, that's what we ask ourselves. Another thing that's unjust, it's all about sports. So the national and national. What do I want to say? Yeah, the international and national component might overweigh the daily use of it and what it means for the people surrounding the neighborhood. And then just are, for example, that they want to highlight public transport and slow mobility. So there will not be a lot of parking lots. There will be a new tram station and bike lanes. So I think that's really just, in our opinion. And then they do want to incorporate socioeconomic programs, which of course is just, but the question is, how do they want to incorporate them?
Okay, so we went back to the studio and we worked on a value problem matrix using the Just Values Index of Tony Griffin. We already, in this just unjust features we saw both in the plan and on the site, we described some values. And these are the values we think are important for the neighborhood, and we think they should be addressed. And we also described some problems. You can see them in the blue post-its that might, make sure that those values will not be there. So we have the values in the yellow post-its on the top and the problems on the left. And from this, we did a brainstorming session to come up with solutions to overcome these problems and to make sure that these values are addressed. As you can see, we've clustered them according in the matrix. And the most important values we want to address is authenticity, reconciliation, as it is a public-private partnership. So there will be lots of different stakes, so they have to reconcile their stakes. And transparency, and we have to add one because it's not on the slide, but connectivity is also a very important value in this project. So we went from these values, and we wrote out a manifesto to describe what we desire, what we want to be there from the values, and how we project that on Feyenoord City. And these are the problems that we saw. The three most important problems is that we think there might be a monofunctionality, which might make it not very authentic to the site. There is a lack of connectivity because of the train tracks, and the public-private partnership, as I just said, will have to reconcile a lot of stakes. So reconciliation is a very important value here as well. So to come to our manifesto is, do public-private-led urban developments always have to be unjust? Well, we don't believe so. We believe that putting on the just glasses gives you a new perspective. A perspective that shows that it's possible to create a development which recognizes diverse social characteristics and needs of Rotterdam and its people, and therefore it will be authentic. It puts social well-being first by enhancing physical and social networks, which ties places together and provides people with contact and opportunity. It enables citizens to act on behalf of their own interest through open processes, rules, rights, procedures that share information and knowledge. It allows two sides to coexist and different stakes to be fulfilled, which is the reconciliation. And it enables citizens to have a stake in the process, outcome, and other assets. With this perspective, we imagine Feyenoord City as a place that reaches out and is embedded in the fabric of the city. It feels authentic, vital, and will soon be part of Rotterdam. It inspires each other to make the sum greater than the part, and it is owned and appropriated by all people. For example, a woman with a Turkish background, a migration background doing Tai Chi, or a homeless enjoying the waterfront. And it provides Rotterdammers to act on behalf of their own interest. So to conclude, the Feyenoord City project will be a project where success is not only determined by money and reputation, but also by engagement and well-being of Rotterdam citizens. To put this manifesto actually to use, we wanted to develop a framework that can be used in this public-private partnership to incorporate the values in the project. So what I'm going to explain now is that we have one main part, which you can see on the left. It's the just game. And for this workshop, we also came up with 3 possible solutions that, while using the game, they might come up with. I'm going to explain it further. So we have the just game. The just game is a game played by the municipality of Rotterdam and the investor Feyenoord City beforehand or during the development of this project, and it raises the awareness of the values that are important to this development. So we already wrote down the 5 most important values, which is connectivity, authenticity, transparency, reconciliation, and agency. So those are the rules of the game they have to play by. And we wrote out some questions they have to answer throughout the game. You can only proceed if you can answer yes on the question, and if you can't answer yes. So for example, the first one it's a rough sketch. The questions still have to be further detailed. But do you have a plan to collect data from the people? And if you have, you can say yes, then you can proceed. If you say no, it would be you have to answer the questions: what data do you need, or who are you going to approach, and is there a playful, open way to approach them? And through this, the questions further on are a little bit more specified to our values. So the fourth one will be: do you know if the people feel connected to the site, which comes to the value of connectivity, and to go on. So for now, for this workshop or masterclass of a week, we have come up with 3 possible solutions they might think of when playing this game, and Vaggie is going to explain them.
So, one of the solutions, the first step, addressing the value of connectivity, but also the value of agency, is the sports festival. Fene mentioned earlier, did you think of a playful way to address people? One of these ways that might come up is the sports festival. So, we have created the image of the sports festival. You can see that we try to incorporate different languages so that it would include more people and they could see themselves in that, but also different kinds of sports and play. So we're not talking only about football, we are talking about crafts, we are talking about a man doing hula hoop, or someone that can design something like a mascot. Moving to the next one, which is the disruption play bridge, which doesn't only address the issue of connectivity, but most importantly the issue of what kind of programming can we have in a sterile infrastructure, such as the elevated bridge that OMA are proposing. If you take a look at the master plan, it's really nice, neat and beautiful, but the only element that is kind of grey is the only bridge connecting, actually the second bridge connecting the adjacent neighborhood of Feyenoord to the project of Feyenoord City. So we thought, what if we use that bridge, extend it and add playful equipment such as a slide, also programming like food, because health is not only about sports but also about food, or other kind of sports that might be more open than more like playful, like climbing walls. And shifting to the last one, which is actually the extension of the border. So the last intervention that might pop up, or hopefully pop up after you play the game, is that the master plan shouldn't only limit itself to the strict border of Feyenoord City, as we can see with the red line, which is rigid, harsh and not permeable at all, but should go out of its border and reaches to the adjacent neighborhoods and the waterfront. In terms of program, in terms of development and activity. Throughout this journey and throughout this game, we wanted to put on the table 3 main values: authenticity, reconciliation and connectivity. With this game and with these interventions, we hope that these values of the Just City could be a way of addressing adjacent neighborhoods and making Feyenoord City out of its borders. Thank you.
So the setup is following. You guys can ask questions now, and then we'll just hold back. Everybody else will hold back, and then we'll go to the second group, right? So first, perhaps Otto?
Thank you for this presentation. I'm very... It's better like this?
Yeah,
okay.
It's working now.
Well, we were, or you were actually in a roller coaster 1 week, I might say, right? And starting with some kind of idea of value-driven research and development, you came up with some really great ideas, I think. I really like this idea of extending the border, for instance. I think it's a totally different mindset you can deliver to the city. we are too much fixed in thinking in these borders, which I really think it's not so good for the development. But what I actually really wonder, you did this exercise, you jumped into these values, and yeah, what did you discover in the method to look at the city? What would you give back to the city, to all the people here working on those kind of projects? Like, okay, this value-driven approach, using an index like the Just City Index, could bring us more than we could think of before.
So, who of you?
Well, if I can say, I'm an urbanism master student, and what I really liked about this is that you're looking way more into detail into, you're looking at the details of the site. We went there on Monday, we actually had some discussions with Zach as well, like, but what is justice and where do I have to look at? So I think for me, it was about looking at different details, and that made it, like, we just started on a different side, and that made this, it made it interesting to come up with different approaches as well. I don't know if we would have come up with the board game if we wouldn't have considered those values. It was interesting to think about, like, what if we have this workshop, we've had this workshop, but how can we help people think about these values as well when it's not there, when it's not for their profit. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone wants to add something.
Maybe also, Ferry, you're from the area, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm actually a bit more from the part of the south, IJsselmonde.
Yeah.
But I know Feyenoord pretty well.
So you talk about these glasses, these just glasses. You walk around the area for many years now. Do you walk around in a different way now?
It's
using
actually
these glasses.
It gives me a new vision, like new insights into things I could do. So that's the most important thing these values gave me during my process, was new insights, a new way to look at things. You know, it helps you find a new way. That's actually it changed my way of thinking a bit more deep. Some things I didn't thought about during my thesis, for example.
For example?
You know, more like a bit more about the diversity part and how some people could actually feel in certain circumstances, because the values have some descriptions, and if you start to think about them, you actually get new ideas a bit further than I was actually going with my own thesis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a questions about the game, because we were talking yesterday about looping the game, and you had one of your values was transparency, and in the game you had 3 steps, and the steps always work the same way. You know, the game is played between the municipality and the developer, and they have to ask themselves, do I know what people know in the area? And if they say, yes, we know, they go on. But they might think they know, and they don't ask. So wouldn't it be better if the play would be played by the municipality, the developer, and the community, or people from the community in the first place? Because now you kind of leave it still with the developer and the municipality to decide.
Definitely a good idea, which we try to incorporate, but the time scale were not possible to do. But I think in the game that we develop now, the citizens will have to jump in at one point, and that's hopefully in the very beginning, when the question is raised, do you know what the people actually want? How do you collect your data?
One of the questions we didn't show was, are there any representatives of the citizens, and who are they? Are they on the table? It was one of the latest questions, so maybe it should have been put forward. But yes, it should. Maybe during the game you'll discover that you have to play this with them. yeah, this is like really a preliminary game. Yeah, but it will be a good thing, for sure.
Hi team, I'm Tony Griffin. So first of all, it's really exciting to see this approach that we've been developing at Harvard at the Just City Lab being utilized by everyone today. So thank you all so much for all your hard work this week. And just the thoughtfulness and consideration and passion and energy you all brought to going through the exercises to help you produce what you did. And it's clear to me, and what I like about your project and the different representations of ideas that you came up with, is it does ask you to consider not only the spatial and physical design characteristics, so for example, looking at the issues of barrier and connectivity and how you create better physical connections, but it also, as a process, encouraged you, and you all were very thoughtful in this, in thinking about processes and who benefits, right, and how people participate. So the game is this really nice idea about how to make more transparent the process of development to everyone in a really accessible way. It's one thing to say, here's the tender document, go find out what they're doing, versus making it a game that a young person can understand, that my grandmother can understand, and it's accessible, so that's fantastic. I agree with Ruth that we talked about this before, right? All these different stakeholders that you have, you know, there could be different variations of the game that they each play, and then there's a moment where they play it together, right? Because depending on the response by any one of those stakeholders at any given point triggers someone else to do something different, right? So there is this interplay, and if there were Masterclass Part 2, right, you could begin to flesh those things out some more. But I love that you put that idea out for people, because again, it makes the notion of connectivity, transparency, and authenticity understood as both a process and a program, as well as a physical intervention via the ideas that you came up with. So congratulations. Thank you all so much for your efforts. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.